So then comes static keyword,
Mhm.
a non-access modifier. So static keyword, it's chosen in front of variables, it is chosen in front of methods. I will also talk about inner classes. The static keyword is also, you know, it can be used in front of inner classes also. But what does this
Mhm.
keyword do and why it is used, how it works, we will talk about that. So, to understand static keyword better, static keyword is for the class that whatever, in whichever functionality, in front of whichever functionality you have used static keyword, you are basically trying to say that that functionality is for the entire project or for the entire class, right?
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
why do we say that? That is the point, right? Why do we say that that functionality, that feature is for the entire project or for the entire class? For that, we need to understand two basic rules of Java.
Mhm. Before you go there, I have a question.
Yeah,
So, static function, can it be public, private? Is it okay to have those access modifiers?
right. It's if a project, if a function is for the entire project or for the entire class, they try
Mm.
to make that particular function as protected or public. They try to skip the static keyword. But again, if I have to create a singleton design pattern, singleton feature in my class, that also is private
Mhm.
static only. So static it has a different meaning. Public, private, protected, default, they have a different meaning. But yes, if you club these two meanings together, again you have to say, uh, am I restricting the scope of a, and of a particular functionality which is specific to the entire project, right?
Mhm.
So
So basically, they'll put public for a
right,
static method because
yeah,
it's associated. Okay.
yes, majorly you will see public. Only in the rarest of the rare scenario you will see a private static also, but only in the rarest of the rare scenario that we agree that this functionality is for the entire project, so static will be there. But still we don't want this functionality to be accessed, so then
Mhm.
private comes into, but only in a very particular scenario this happens. But majorly static functions are majorly public only,
Okay.
right?
Hey, 1 second. 1 second. Hey, sorry,
No
I'm
problem.
back.
Yeah, no problem. So I was saying that to understand why we said that static functionality is for the entire project or for the entire class, you're right, or entire package. It's because we need to understand the basic objective of basic need of a object or basic work of an object first. See,
Mhm.
static is opposite to a object, and Java is a object-oriented programming language. In Java,
Mhm.
every object that you create or you get from the parent class, those objects are given unique values. You know, those objects are given unique values of all non-static variables. When I said non-static variable, that means variables or data members which are specific to a particular functionality, right? Which I'll show you. Every object is given a unique, they have unique values of all non-static data members. The opposite is every static, you know, the static variable, you know, it's shared by all objects. So first was objects have unique values of all non-static variable. Then is objects share the same copy of static variable, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So to understand this, let's create.
Can you go back? I have one question on that first thing where you said object has unique value for all non-static variables. So you mean to say you create an object so that object one will have a unique value. So you're creating another object like
Right,
object two, then
right,
it has another value. Like you're talking in that terms, right? Like
right,
it has all of them has different value.
right, right,
Okay, okay. Yeah.
right. So, let's say we have a counter class. This is a
Mm-hmm,
class, right? And let's begin with a non-static variable count. When I don't write static in front of it, it is a non-static.
mm-hmm,
So, for non-static variable, constructors are created,
mm-hmm,
right? And for static variables, I will tell you static initializer block is created,
mm-hmm,
right? So I incremented the value of count variable, and I just printed that at a moment, at a particular point in time, the value of this count variable is this, right? So I
mm-hmm,
created three instances of this, or three objects of this counter class. Now the constructor will be invoked three times,
mm-hmm,
but in all three scenarios it will print the value of count variable as 1 because default of integer is 0,
mm-hmm,
right? So
mm-hmm,
it will say that the value of count variable is 1.
mm-hmm,
That is why I was saying that every object carries or is given a unique value of non-static variables. But the
mm-hmm,
moment I make them static, that means I am saying every object will share a same copy of static variable. Now the value of count variable will be 1, 2 and 3,
two,
not
three. Mm.
right. So that
Yeah,
is
because yeah.
so you know as a bird's eye view at a global level, I can say this variable is now for the entire project, for the entire
Mm-hmm,
class. And from
yeah.
the memory management point of view, I have taken a very right call to define a particular variable as static or non-static. That is very important.
Mm-hmm,
So once we see that, then comes, let's say I have another example to prove that same point. And we will talk about static methods also. So as of now, we have only talked about static variables.
mm-hmm,
So let's say I have a organization data with employee ID, with employee name, and of course with employee age. Now these will differ for different employees. So
mm-hmm,
there is no point for me to make them as static because this is going to be unique for all employees. S-
mm-hmm,
So this is how I we will take a call. But
mm-hmm.
when I say the company address or company zip code or company you know you know
A
uh,
company ID or something.
right, so that will be same. so
Mm-hmm,
so that is how we need to decide
mm-hmm,
which to make static and which one should not be made static. Once that call we have taken, then
mm-hmm,
resource leakages as far as static or non-static keyword comes, that problem will not arise with as only with this particular to this very functionality. It may arise because of other wrong API if we have chosen. And
mm-hmm,
for constructor, we also specifically said that while we will create a employee data, we will give you a employee ID, we will give you a employee name, we will give you a employee age. All you need to do is set your local instance variable with the method parameter,
mm-hmm,
right? That is the job of a constructor, which we have learned.
mm-hmm,
So constructor is also ready for non-static variable.
mm-hmm,
Now I can have a non-static method which will print me the value of all the employee ID that I am going to create.
mm-hmm,
It will also print me, the name of all employees which we will create, and
mm-hmm,
it will also print the age of an employee that we will mention out. But
Mm-hmm.
objects are given the power to use the static variable.
Mm-hmm.
So they can very well use static variable as part of a non-static method. You know, objects
Mm-hmm.
can very well
Mm-hmm.
use that,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when I
Mm-hmm.
create, let's say, three employee records and I mentioned the ID as, let's say, 11, name as, let's say, A, age as, let's say, 30. So first employee record is created,
Mm-hmm.
second employee record, third employee record, and with all employee record we call this display function. Now when I run this, it will print me different employee ID. One is 12, 13, X, Y, 31, 32. So when I run this, ID, name and age will be different, but organization name will be same.
I have a question here. Usually in the static method, it will ask you to use only static methods, right? I
Yeah,
have seen that in the past.
yeah.
So, but here it is not.
So the apart from the two rules that we have discussed, we have two basic rules. One we have already seen, one we will talk about. So as I told you, display is a static method. So display is a non-static method. So non-static method is given the you know power to use both static as well as non-static variables
Mm-hmm.
that we have seen via display function.
Yeah.
But to the static method, they are only given this power to only use static variables because
Mm-hmm.
these are for the entire project or for the entire class or for the entire package.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say if my organization name is getting changed, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So we created a method that there is going to be organization name change. It is going to be a static method because it is going to apply to all the employees. So from
Mm-hmm.
ABC consultancy it became a XYZ consultancy, and
Mm-hmm.
since it is a static method we can directly call it with the class name.
Mm-hmm.
Now when I run this, organization name will be XYZ consultancy for all employees.
No, did you get what I was trying to ask you?
Yeah, you were saying that in the static method I can only use a static variable, but here if you
Yeah.
if you use a non-static variable you will get a compilation error that you cannot use a non-static variable in a static context, cannot make.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
So similarly, like that our main class is public static, right?
right.
So there
Your voice is going.
call non-static.
I could not.
Uh,
No,
so what I'm saying is, can you
your voice
okay,
is
can you
break.
hear me?
Yeah, I can, but your voice just after two three words it just goes away. Say it again. I mean,
Uh, Can you hear me?
yeah, I can.
Okay. So here I'm talking about our main static method, okay? Public static void main.
Hmm.
There
Again it goes away. Again it just went away.
non-static variable like, or data.
Yeah, I could not get your entire statement. So yeah, I mean,
So can you hear me now?
yeah, I can, but after half of your statement, just the another half, it I could not get that. I mean, if you can write that. So
Yeah, yeah. Let me write.
yeah,
This chat.
yeah, here it's if you, let's say, here you have this
Yeah,
chat
yeah.
option.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I will. But in my Teams, I'm not able to see the chat. Can you put hi in the chat? I'll respond then.
Did you get that? So basically what you were trying to ask is, in the main method, if you try to use static variable with objects, you get warning.
Mm.
Or
Yeah, will it display an error? Because that display is non-static, right?
right.
On the top.
Yeah, for that you always have to create an object and call it with the object. You simply can't call this method without the object if it is a non-static. Uh,
Yeah. But I can always create an object and call. Okay.
right.
Okay. Got it.
Right. So,
Yeah.
this is from the variable or from the method perspective, we have learned how to, you know, how to set out definitions from the project from the class point of view. Object carries unique value, distinct value of all non-static variable. Objects share the same copy of static variable. Non-static method is given the power to use both static as well as non-static variable. Static method is only given the power to use static variable.
Mm-hmm.
Then comes, we learnt about constructor, which is created for, non-static variable initialization part.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have got these static initializer block which gets called even before main. Even before main, this block is executed, and it is only written down to initialize static variables.
Mm-hmm.
Right, for example, if you have a hash map, you have properties file, you know you have database drivers, they are all initialized before you start executing your project. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
we just created this class to understand the static initializer block versus a constructor, basically. you know so here I have a static field, let's say number 1, and I have a non-static field which is going to be unique for all object, and static field which is going to be same for all object. So I created this static initializer block and I gave this static value to 20.
Mm-hmm.
Now before main, even without creating an object, if I try to print this value of a static variable number 2, it will print me
Mm-hmm.
it will
Yeah.
print me 20,
Yeah.
because we have initialized this as part of a static initializer block.
So here, can I have a static initializer block constructor with these two variables, int and static int?
Yeah, I'll just come to that. So if I just mention that this is a static initializer block, and
Mm-hmm.
if I just mention that this is a main method,
Mm-hmm.
so just to show you, this block will get executed before main. That we need to know in Java, that it happens like this.
Mm-hmm.
Right, now coming back to your question. So here I have a constructor whose name matches with that of a class name and which does not have a return type. So of course
Mm-hmm.
I can initialize non-static variable as part of a constructor. But
Mm-hmm.
if I try to initialize this static variable, you know, it simply
Mm-hmm.
says it's fine. I mean, you can do that. Right now it will still print me 20 because I did not create an object. So constructor will not get invoked. But if
No,
I,
like can
yeah,
so here in that constructor, can you pass those two variables, like with two parameters,
yeah,
number and number two?
yeah. If I pass
Will
these,
that work?
yeah. Static methods are non-static method are given this power to use static variables if they want to use. That feature is with non-static data members,
Mm-hmm.
right? But you get a warning that this should be accessed in a static way. Only you get a
Mm-hmm.
warning. So here if I say static number 1 is 10 and number 2 is 30, now using the object of a class, if I access both numbers since it is created via constructor now. So it will give me
Mm-hmm.
30. You can use that. But here also you get a warning that you should not use this because you are going against the basic learning of Java, that it should be accessed in a static way. But
Mm-hmm.
non-static methods are given this power to use static variables.
Mm-hmm.
But what we have learned that now here in static initializer block you can't use a static variable because that will
Okay.
yeah, so that it will simply tell me that you cannot access a static reference in a non-static, you cannot use a non-static variable in a static field, you cannot make a static reference to a non-static field. Right. So, but you need to remember that next time you have a hash map, you have a linked list, you have a resource properties file, you have a JDBC driver, you have a basic work to do before you start your project. That basic
Mm-hmm.
prerequisite work is always done, via the static initializer block.
Static.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that is basically, static. So from now
So
onwards, yeah,
can you go back to the Java Eclipse? I will have a question.
right.
That static initializer. So no matter where you write that, so static initializer will be executed first.
Yeah,
That's right?
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
The location of a code never matters in Java,
Okay.
right? It will again work, right?
Yeah.
So from now onwards, you will categorize every Java functionality in two different categories. Two different,
Static and non-static.
right? Field static, non-static, method static, non-static, constructor or static initializer block. In the coming class, I will tell you inner class which is static, non-static, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So now again, I'm giving you one exercise to tell me whether this statement is right or wrong. That
Mm-hmm.
static methods can never be overridden, like in inheritance. Just tell me whether this statement is right or not wrong. Static method, since it is for the entire project or for the class, can you override this from a parent to child class
Because static is associated to a class.
or to an entire
S-
project? Right. So just try
Yeah.
this at your end and let me know. I mean, it cannot be overridden, but just
Mhm.
make certain examples and see whether it is
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
And
Because it's been shared because and you cannot change that,
right,
right?
right. There is no point of making a overridden method as static because again we are going against the rule, basic
Mm-hmm.
functionality, right? Ima- i-
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, just think in an interface, what happens if a function declared in an interface is static? Just that is the last point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those functions has to be defined by class files, but those functions have to be defined by multiple class files.
Mm-hmm.
So just
So you can,
yeah,
yeah, there will be a conflict like.
right. So we should never go against the rule, right.
Mm. Yeah.
So this is about static keyword, right? That why static variable method, initialize a block, why they are for the entire project, for the entire functionality,
Mm-hmm.
right?